So we're going to have a quick look around Photoshop. Now, as I said, I do not use that many tools in Photoshop to do what I need to do. And there's one thing to know about Photoshop, there's generally quite a few different ways of doing the same thing. And so how you work with Photoshop going forward, you'll find your own way. But I've sort of pretty much stuck to the same sort of way for ages, really. And you know, there's new things that crop up from time to time, and I may or may not get into them. Like a lot of people, I expect I'm sort of a little bit stuck in my ways. If I know how to do something, I'm quick at doing it, and then all of a sudden I'll discover, oh look, there's a new tool and that does something really good as well. Photoshop is a little bit like that. But the good thing for us is that, you know, for general simple things like kind of getting rid of this lead or getting rid of this ball, it's pretty easy. And most of the time, my basic edits in Photoshop are getting rid of things or moving things or maybe adding something else. So I'm just going to give you a very quick tour around Photoshop in a very basic way, because the thing is, Photoshop is huge. There is so, you know, you look at all these menus, there's so much that you can be doing, and it can be very, very intimidating. I mean, I can't tell you what all of these things do. I've never need like, what's the 3D, like, what's that? I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't need to know. I don't have anything to do with it. I'm sure it's amazing, but for what I do, I don't need to know it. So I'm just going to show you around a few different tools, what they do. I'm going to show you the layers palette, that's important. And you know what? That's kind of it for what we need. So let's have a quick look. So obviously we have opened an image. I've opened this picture of Faith, and if you go down to the bottom right here, now yours may not look like this. So if it doesn't look like this and you want it to look the same as mine, you need to go up to Window, Workspace, and then go to Essentials. That's the default layout of. But the reason why they've done that is because they think these are the things that you're going to use the most. Let's put them where they're easily found. And you know, layers, you're definitely going to want to use quite a lot. I just want to quickly draw your attention to this area here. Um, I'm going to just bring this out just 1 second. This is the background layer. When you open an image in Photoshop, it will always call it background, this layer, and it will be one layer. Obviously, it's one image, one layer. This is how it looks in the layers palette. And if you look over here, there's a little lock. All the background layers will come in as being locked. Now, there are certain things that you can't do to an image when the layer is locked. So I'm not going to go into all the reasons why now. Pretty much, I think, as I recall, all the things that I want to do, it doesn't really matter. But if for example, if anything ever you're trying to do something, it says cannot complete the request because the layer is locked, this is where you would need to go in order to solve that. So you just click it and then it's not locked. That's just a little extra thing, and then you can just, well, you don't have to take it out, but I just did so you could see properly. But that is where you would resolve that problem if you ever had it. Over on the left here, we've got lots of different tools. Again, it can look like very intimidating. Well, there's just so much to know, so much to do. Let's go through a few. So let's see. One of the ones I use the most is this tool called, now again, if you hold your mouse over the tool, you'll get, or you should get, a little thing, whatever it's called, box with some information that tells you what tool it is and what it does. So this is the clone stamp tool. It paints with pixels from another part of the image. What you need to do when you're using the clone stamp tool, if, for example, I wanted to get rid of this ball, I probably want to use some information over here and then paint it there. But in order to tell Photoshop where I want to paint it from, I need to press the Alt key, click, let go, and then I can paint like that. Now, yeah, that doesn't look too bad. It could probably be better. I'm going to go Command Z to undo what I just did. Now, that rubber stamp, it's not always this size. So in order to change the size of, in effect, what it is, a brush that you are using, you go up here and you can basically clone with anything. It's like when you use a brush, there's so many different brushes that you can use. I only ever use a soft brush with a feather. So let's say if I were to go and where's it gone? Where's the brush tool? There's the brush tool. Okay. And if I go up here and I click that same one and I increase the size a bit more, okay. Here are the colours down here. I'm probably going to be painting with black, well, they should be. Okay, so you can see it's feathered. So exactly the same thing will happen when I use a feathered brush with the clone stamp tool. It will clone, but sort of in a feathered manner. So if I just undo that and I go back to the clone stamp tool, if I were to use a brush that isn't feathered, let's see the difference. So you can see, yeah, it's not as good as it because the edges aren't as soft. So I always use, unless that is what you want it to be like, well, in this instance I can't see why you would, but yeah, that's what you do. You'd use a brush that doesn't have a feathered edge, but I always use a feathered edge. And you can adjust this feathered edge in this area here where it says hardness. So let's do that again. Let's alt there. Okay, so in effect, that is what the clone stamp tool does. I use the clone stamp tool a lot, so you're going to be seeing it a lot in the forthcoming examples. Let's do another tool. Let's get the ball back. What about the eraser? So, okay, let's say I wanted to erase. Oh, that's locked again. Now, I can erase it. Now, the thing is, why it's got that checked grey and white checked pattern there, that means that there's nothing there. So we've only got one layer in this file and I've just erased some of it. That means I have literally erased what's there and there's nothing underneath. That's what that checked pattern means. So that's the eraser. But again, with the eraser, just like with the clone stamp tool and the brush, you can change the size and the type of way that you are erasing with. I mean, there's all sorts of fancy different, they call them brushes. You can add them in down here, but I never bother. I only ever do a feathered circular brush. But you can change the size up here, and you can also change the size on your keyboard as well, which I find really, really useful. Next to the letter P, you should see two buttons. If you click the left one, it will make the brush smaller, and if you click the right one, it will make the brush bigger. That's a really handy way of changing the size. If you're going around doing things and you dip, bit smaller, bit bigger, it's amazing. Okay, so what's this one? This one here, this is called the Spot Healing Brush Tool. This removes marks and blemishes. I'm going to see what this tool, just going to make that bigger, what this tool does with this ball. So it removes marks and blemishes. Oh, that's done a fairly good job, although I can kind of see, yeah, it's a bit messy, isn't it? Let's undo that. Let's try the one underneath. What's this one? The Healing Brush Tool repairs imperfections using pixels from another part of the image. All right, let's see. So again, same with the clone stamp tool. If I press Alt and then brush over that, as far as I can tell, has done the best job so far. In fact, that's pretty much perfect. So in this instance, which one was it? The Healing Brush Tool was the tool that did the best job. That's not to say that every time I do something like this, the Healing Brush Tool is going to work. It just has worked the best in this instance. So the more you use Photoshop, the more you will get to know the tools and which one does the best job depending on what you're doing. I mean, I flip between these tools quite a lot. There's one underneath, which is also fun. So if I go Command Z again, we want the ball back. So this one is the patch tool. Replaces a selected area using a pattern or pixels from another part of the image. Right, let's go around that. Look at that. Now, to deselect that, I would just go Command D and there's no selection. Wow, that's done a pretty good job as well. How easy was that? Don't you just love Photoshop? It's amazing. So, but we are starting very, very simply here, just so you make you aware. Right, I'm going to just quickly go through some tools which I don't necessarily need to use in this image, but it's still quite handy for you to know what they are because I will be using them at some point. This is the move tool, moves a selection or layer. So let's see, let me do a selection first, right? So okay, so underneath the move tool, you've got various different tools that can make selections. And if you hold it down, any tool, by the way, that has a little arrow here means there's something else in there. It's not just that tool that's on the top, there's another thing underneath. So if I click that and hold it, then you'll get the various different options. So let's just go with the rectangular marquee tool. So that's my selection, right? So if I go Command C and then Command V to copy and paste, you'll see down here there's another layer. What it's done is copied and pasted it onto a different layer. So it's copied it from the layer 0 and it's pasted it onto a new layer. It'll always do that if you paste something. And these two little eyes here indicate layer visibility. What I'm going to just do is I'm just going to click that to hide that lower layer. Now you see that whole layer is gone and we've just got this bit that I copied and pasted from the original layer. If I click that eye again, it's come back. It didn't delete the layer, it just made it invisible. So what did it say? Indicates layer visibility. So it's really handy thing for you to do as well, is to understand that layers can do that. It's amazing. Anyway, right, back to the move tool. So I'm going to get the move tool. Now, it's important, if you want to move something, you have to have the layer selected for the thing that you want to move. Now, hang on a minute. There you go. So I can just move that around. Let's say I wanted to put it over his head, or her head rather, her name's Faith, which I don't, but I do, you know, let's just do it. And that's how I do it. So that's the move tool. And I'm just going to go down here. Let's move that out of the way. I don't want that to cover her face. So yeah, so these are the rectangular marquee tool, and underneath you've got the elliptical marquee tool, which is circular. Again, I don't tend to really be using this tool very much in the sort of thing that I'm doing when I'm doing very simple edits, but they can sometimes come in handy. Now underneath I've got the lasso tool. This makes freehand selections. I do use this. This is pretty good. Oh, I don't know. Let's say I wanted to just sort of get rid of that. I can do a selection and then I can go backspace. Oh, sorry, that's not going to work because if you go over to the right, you'll see that I'm not actually on the layer that this image is on. So I need to click on the layer there. Then if I were to press backspace, it will delete it. Now, look, in this instance, that's not very handy, but just to show you, that's what it can do. Sometimes I do want to delete things. Command D to deselect. Okay, now here's a crop tool. I never use this in Photoshop because I always crop my images in Lightroom, because if you crop it in Photoshop, it's cropped and that's it. And I like the fact that in Lightroom it's non-destructive, so if I crop it and then I change my mind, I can always go back to the original. So I don't crop images here. I think that's probably it. Aside from, oh, what's going on there? Aside from this little hand tool, now I don't know if you noticed, I sort of zoomed in and out and kind of used a hand to sort of move the image around. That is really, really helpful. So for example, if I wanted to go to this area here, it's a little bit far away for my eyes to see and I want to go in and do something with the detail. you can use the zoom tool, go in, and then you think, oh, hang on a minute, I want it to go just over there. Well, you could use the bars here, but it's a little bit of a clunky way, if you ask me. There's two ways to get to the hand. You can actually click on the hand tool, or you could just press the space bar and then hold it down and then move it. That's my preference. It's so much better. Now, if you wanted to zoom out, you can go Command and press the minus key, or if, an easier way or quicker way of getting to see the whole of the image is to go Command 0, and then you can see the whole of the image. Now, that is just a very few things. Now, as I go through all the samples, I will be talking about these over and over, and I'll probably introduce a few little extra bits. But you know what, really, when I'm doing most of my edits, these basic edits, that is it. That is all I am using. So it's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be intimidated by. You'll be able to do this, no problem. All right, so I shall see you in the first sample edit.